Okay. Yeah, hitting the join audio button is probably a good thing to do when you're giving a live stream. Sorry, everyone. I'll start over. Thanks whoever told everyone that we don't have audio. So give me 1 second. Okay. All right. So as I was saying, my name is Michael. I'm CEO of Hummingbot, and we're back with another edition of Hummingbot Live, which is our weekly web show where we basically do an intro into some topic with Hummingbot. And today I'm going to present basically a bit of history on how we've evolved the strategies at Hummingbot over time. And we also take questions from the audience. So if you have any question about Hummingbot, crypto in general, or really anything, feel free to post it on the chat, and I'll try to read it out and answer it in real time. So, so of course, the one purpose of these sessions is to show off, live running of the bot itself. So I will be doing some of that during the session as well. So I'll try to kind of like start a bot, kind of like at the very beginning. And then let it run for a while, and then we can come back and let's see how it goes. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So we're going to talk about the Hummingbot kind of strategies, I guess. Let's see. If you can still see me, does it still work? Yes, it looks like it still works. Great. So first, I'll give a little presentation on Hummingbot strategies, past, present, and future. First, as a disclaimer, this is only for instructional purposes only, just education. When I run a bot, it really is for testing purposes, and not really giving any financial advice. So Hummingbot, now today, we're an open source trading client, and the main purpose is to allow traders to trade on different centralized and decentralized exchanges. I don't know why my mouse bar is there. Without having to build connectors into all of these different exchanges. When we first started, we used to run a quant trading fund, and back then we would spend weeks like building these low-level API integrations into an exchange before we could even get started with the fun stuff. And many other people, both individuals and also trading firms, have the same problem. So we thought it'd be better, instead of building a fund, to launch this open source project on Hummingbot, and really to save everyone a lot of time by building connectors to all these exchanges. And so today we support over 25 connectors. A lot of them are both centralized and decentralized. And what we enable is a global community of quant traders all over the world to basically run all types of strategies on these exchanges. And they really focus on market making, because liquidity provision is one of the biggest kind of topics of interest in crypto. And market making has always been a lot of kind of like mystique around how to do it. But in our opinion, it's just software. And if it's software, then there should be an automated solution for it, and that's exactly what Hummingbot is. So today, a lot of people use Hummingbot, and over time, our strategies have really changed a lot. We've always really focused on market making and arbitrage, but in the very beginning, they only were available on spot exchanges, and only for spot centralized exchanges, that is, and they were really basic and rudimentary. Looking back, I'm almost ashamed of how basic they were. And today, our strategies can run on both spot and perpetual exchanges, both centralized and decentralized exchanges in crypto. And overall, I think they're a little more advanced than the ones in the past. So now I'll talk about where we kind of came from, the past ones, what Hummingbot strategies look like today, and then finally I'll talk about kind of like what we're doing in the future with Hummingbot. Okay, so when we first started, there were kind of three main strategies we had at Hummingbot, and we called them pure market making, cross-exchange market making, and then arbitrage. And so let me kind of show off the pure market making strategy. That was really the one that a lot of people have been using, because for market making, that's really kind of like in the past, our flagship. Strategy. So I have Hummingbot running in my AWS instance over here. So I'm going to start it up, enter my password, and then I will see the screen here. So let's see. Yep, this should be big enough. So first, first with Hummingbot, there's always a help command that shows you, what commands are available. So on this instance, I think I have, I have a connector into Binance. So I've added that key, and looks like I was also testing, the key for Huobi. So I intentionally put in an invalid key, and so this is what happens when you put in an invalid key. It says no for keys confirmed, and you'll see an error message here. So I'll show a demo, a test bot on Binance to show you how the pure market making strategy works. So I'll use a create command and select the pure market making strategy. And then for the exchange, this is for the exchange. So I'll select Binance. And then for the trading pair, so I'll pick Algo and USDT. This is mainly because I know there are some Algo tokens and USDT tokens in this test account. And then basically the pure market making strategy, it really just automated a set of kind of fairly deterministic and simple kind of processes that would allow the bot to kind of update your orders. So typically what we typically had people input is the spread. So this is a spread on kind of like both sides of the order book, the bid spread and the ask spread. And then also how much time long you would take to cancel the order, the amount of algo you want to have the order. And then we asked this question, we had this ping pong feature that was a very simple way to kind of manage inventory risk, which is the main risk faced by market makers, which just allows your orders to kind of bounce around. And so when you fill a buy order, you only show a sell order. And then when you fill a sell order, you then only show a buy order. And this ping pong feature really allowed people a very simple rudimentary way to handle the risk where, if the market's going down a lot, you end up buying. And then when the market goes up, you end up selling. And so that risk is mitigated by this feature, but in an extremely basic way. Oh, actually, I should turn on ping pong. Didn't mean to turn that off. And so, yeah, the config, you can always use the config command to kind of edit things like this on the fly. So it's kind of, if I just start that bot, it's going to really just kind of place a couple orders, and then place a couple orders for to buy and sell these algo tokens, it's just really update them every 30 seconds or faster if you want. And then over time, we've also added a lot of parameters to this strategy to help users deal with inventory risk and other risks that market makers might face. So, for instance, we added a feature called hang orders, which allows you to kind of like leave your orders on the books and have them out there. We also added stuff like we have something called inventory skew, which allows you to kind of target a certain inventory percentage, and then the bot would adjust the sizes of orders to help you get there. And really a bunch of other stuff, and to help users manage the inventory risk, the main risks that come from market making. But to be honest, I think the issue with a lot of this stuff is that it's kind of like they're all levers, but they're kind of independent levers that don't really have a lot of theoretical kind of grounding, and so they do work, but I think it's kind of like it's a bit of like trial and error in order to find the right combination that works for a certain market condition. And as markets change, as a market maker, you really need to kind of like fine tune this. So what we found was the users who had the most success with the strategy were really the ones that put in the most amount of effort, who kind of watched the markets, adjusted the parameters in their bot, and so forth. And so because of that, we eventually added a feature called scripts that would allow users to kind of like, customize the bot even more. So with scripts, you can, we actually had a script that allows users to kind of adjust their spreads when the market's more volatile. And so that was a really popular script that people had. But the issue with scripts is they do still require you to kind of like, run in Python. I think they also didn't work with their binaries. because they required like a different type of like module. So yeah, there's some issues there. So that's why overall, I think we decided to kind of like really take a step back a few months ago and really kind of like, assess how we wanted to kind of do our strategy again. Because with cross-exchange market making and arbitrage, these two strategies are still quite useful. But because they're arbitrage, they're kind of arbitrage-like strategies. Users, don't use them as much. They're more complicated to use, and they're not as kind of simple to use as market making. So what we did, kind of like we started really last year, end of last year, and heading into this year, was really developing strategies that we felt would be kind of like help users market make in a safer and a more diversified way. And so really we focused on kind of two in particular. So these are the two I'll focus on today, which is liquidity mining and the Avada strategy. So as you may know, the main way that we make money as a company is we run a liquidity mining platform called Hummingbot Miner, where people can take Hummingbot and run and earn rewards there. So on that one, because you're earning rewards, it tends to offset the cost of market making, and many of our users have actually used it to earn a profit. But also because of diversification, a lot of users they run a multiple instances of Hummingbot in order to earn rewards in multiple markets and allow kind of like the diversification to smooth out their returns profile and achieve kind of like a more consistent level of profitability. So observing the behavior, we decided to kind of like just create a strategy that kind of automates this a bit more and kind of just gives you more control. And so it really the main value is it allows you to run multiple markets and earn rewards in multiple markets without having to run multiple instances of Hummingbot. And the other thing it does is the volatility kind of like script we have in Hummingbot, we basically put it into liquidity mining. So let me run a liquidity mining strategy right now, and then I'll pause and take some questions because we do have some questions in the comments. 1 second as I show you guys how liquidity mining works. So let's check in our status with pure market making bot. So it's been running for a while, but because these spreads are actually pretty wide for this market, we haven't had any orders hit yet. So I'm going to stop the bot and I'm going to set up a liquidity mining bot that's meant to show you how that works. So so the liquidity mining bot right now is basically it's kind of like it's almost like pure market making on a simplified pure market making, simplified version of pure market making, but allows you to kind of hit multiple markets at once. So so recall that before I had Algo USDT as my market, and now I'm going to add a new one. So I'm going to add Avalanche USDT just as another market. And this second one actually is one that we have a reward pool. So this is one where Hummingbot Miner has rewards. So I'll put these two markets in, and then I'll use because USDT is a common token there. I'm going to use USDT to provide liquidity for these markets. So the size, basically, size I'll put in USDT as well. So size I'll put to say 20, and then here the simple set option. This is the spread, 0.5%, and then target inventory percentage. And so this is applied to every market that you're in. And so and then finally just the configuration name. So what this does is essentially, if I start this strategy, it basically makes a market. It does the same thing as pure market making, but it's just doing so on two markets instead of one. And so and we're also kind of like and in addition, for markets where it's rewarded by Hummingbot Miner, if you run the status command, it shows you the market, the reward per week, and some of the some other stats to help you kind of decide which markets you want to participate in and so forth. So this one, and really the advantage of this one, I think, is that it has that volatility adjustment feature from before, and you can set kind kind of like a multiple list of markets. In fact, I'm going to stop this bot, and I'm going to kind of like config the markets to even more, and kind of like see how many I can get in here. Yeah, I know these are kind of like markets where we have some type of campaign running, so that way I'll be able to kind of earn rewards in all of these markets at once. Yep. So now that I have essentially a market making bot running 5 different markets, and then basically what the bot has done is it's taken my total amount of inventory in USDT and in these other 5 tokens, and then really just kind of divide them up. So there's an roughly equal amount of of value in each one, and then it's trying to essentially make sure that the balance is like around, it's targeting 50% inventory rate, or 50% allocation across in each market. So the bot's running now. So yeah. So and then the other. Let me pause for now and then take a few questions from the audience. Looks like Sean asks, I've been working with scripting quite a bit lately, but it needs some improvements. Here's the list of improvements I'd like to see. Expose all PMM parameters to scripting. More events, especially partial fills and user update parameters, and then finally, number 3, interface to expose user settable parameters to scripts in the Hummingbot UI. Yeah, Sean. Actually, yeah, these are really good suggestions. And actually, let me first kind of explain kind of like the history of scripts and kind of what we're planning to do with them going forward. So so scripts were something we introduced middle of last year in response to kind of like the demand from users to kind of customize their Hummingbot strategies. So and so initially we kind of thought of it as an add-on to a strategy, and so that's why currently it's built as a different sub process. And because it's a different sub process, that's why even if you have a bug in your script, it doesn't block the kind of operation in Hummingbot. And so, but because it's a different sub process, we have to kind of manually expose certain variables to that sub process. And so like we could expose more, but every single one we expose just requires more engineering time to push them all there. To be honest, I think that what I think people really want to do, and I think this is what you want to do as well, Sean, is to really customize Hummingbot strategies. And I think what we realized is, I think the scripts was like kind of like it served that need, but I think there's actually a better way to serve it holistically, which is to enable easier strategy creation, and to kind of allow strategies to just basically people to create all types of Hummingbot strategies, and to customize existing ones more easily, because really Hummingbot is just Python. And a lot of the code, even on the strategy level, is actually pretty simple. And overall, I think we can actually create more examples of easier strategies and kind of reduce all the boilerplate in a strategy, and just allow users the full access to full power of Hummingbot. So that's a bigger change. That's kind of why we're not doing much with scripts right now, because ultimately we feel like it's more limited as a vehicle for users to customize strategies. And I think a better long-term solution is to just make strategy customization and creation a lot easier, and to basically start doing that. So overall, we're planning to do that starting this summer, if not earlier, and kind of like do that. So and overall, I would say that the trend of Hummingbot is, for the strategy that we create ourselves, I think they're going to be kind of almost more complex in terms of like they're like Avalanche, which I'll show you after this, in that they're kind of based on kind of academic papers. And then on the other side, I think we're going to expose more kind of customization and creation tools for users, so they can kind of like go and create their own strategies and kind of using the templates we create. So that's why overall, what I think we want to try to do is kind of like, for the strategy we create, just focus on really like, spend time on the research part. Whereas for the engineering aspect, because it's open source, it really should be really easy for users to basically do whatever they want. But I think right now, the code base just needs some refactoring in order for us to enable that without kind of like, without making it almost impossible for users to change anything around. So that's actually a good segue. So let me, if you have more questions, please post them in the chat. And then in the meantime, let me demo the other new strategy I just mentioned, the Avada Strategy, because that one is really kind of like that's really the other direction we're going to. Because with liquidity mining, it was like taking the pure market strategy, making it simpler for users to do that across liquidity mining. And then Avada is really about kind of making the core like foundational math underlying the strategy more rigorous, because basically there's a whole host of academic literature in the market making industry. There's been a lot of kind of innovation academically in that area in the last 20 years, and the Avada Stoikov paper was really what really kicked it off. It published about 12 years ago. It really defined a model for how a market maker kind of should think about kind of inventory risk versus spread. And so, and we actually just published a blog post that explains how it works. And then we've kind of basically created a strategy that kind of replicates that paper, but also kind of takes some of the parameters and makes them easier for users to use. So there's both the easy mode, where you can kind of like let it do its thing for you, or there's an advanced mode where it basically replicates exactly how the paper works, but then you have to kind of like kind of inject your own kind of like lower level kind of like variable parameters like kappa and gamma, which might be harder for new users to use, but does give professional users a lot more control. So here's how it works. Let me show that works. And meanwhile, we actually did have a couple fills here, for these two tokens. So because these two markets are ones where there are liquidity rewards available, I am earning rewards as well by running this bot in these markets. So let's stop that bot, and then let's kind of like take a look at the new Avada strategy. So the Avada strategy is really in our mind intended to kind of eventually replace the pure market making strategy as kind of like the entry point for new market makers. So and the reason is that because it's we realize that with pure market making, adding more and more deterministic parameters, even though it gave people more levers, it also made it more confusing. So there's kind of like a decreasing level of returns you're going to get by doing so. And so with Avada, we felt it would be better to kind of almost kind of like really build a better foundation. And so instead of kind of deterministically placing spreads and changing order amounts, Avada kind of uses your inputs to basically kind of like set your spreads more intelligently. So let me run it, and then I'll kind of go back and I'll kind of explain how it works. So similar to pure market making, first you select the exchange, and then you select the trading pair. So like before, I will take Algo USDT as a trading pair, and then use that. And so this time I'm going to let the bot automatically automate the kind of the lower level kappa and gamma parameters based on the spreads I select. So then I just need to kind of enter kind of like my minimum spread. This is the lowest I want the bot to set the spread. And then I can also set the maximum. What is the maximum spread that I want the bot to set? And then finally, I'm going to set two variables that allow the bot to kind of control how sensitive it is to volatility and then inventory. So the first one is the volatility threshold multiplier. So essentially, basically, yeah, so I'll just set it to like 1.1. Actually, it can be 1. Yeah, so it has to be a little greater than 1.0. So I'll pick 1.1 there. And then finally, I'll pick inventory version. So I'll pick something like 1.5 over here. So, yep. And then finally, I'll set the inventory percentage. So let me explain what this is doing before I start the bot. Basically, I've set the minimum spread and the maximum spread. I've set my inventory target, which is 50%. And then I've set two variables that help the bot kind of more intelligently use my inventory risk and to diffuse inventory risk. And so what it's doing is basically it's going to try to keep the inventory level at around 50%. So half algo and half CCT. And then when it deviates, it will basically calculate something called a reservation price, which is kind of like the price that that takes into account where you want to get to from an inventory perspective. And then it'll place a spread around the reservation price, not the actual market price. And then in addition, it will use volatility to adjust your spreads based on this threshold multiplier. But there's a bunch of math behind the scenes that kind of allows everything to work in sync with one another. And so what we've done is we've basically derived some of that into easier kind of like parameters that are basically easier for users to set. And so that's the volatility threshold multiplier and the inventory risk parameter, kappa and gamma respectively. We should actually kind of maybe change these directions a bit to kind of make that a little more obvious. But that's something we'll probably try to do in the next 1 or 2 releases. So let me start the bot. So the first thing you'll notice is that it's going to take a little. It's not going to start the bot right away. And the reason is because, let's see. The reason is because it has to calculate the volatility because it's volatility is an input into the spread, into what kind of spreads you want to set. The bot first has to kind of accumulate enough samples of volatility in order to kind of calculate volatility before starting the bot. Okay, so as we're waiting, let's take a few more questions from the audience. Saucy asks, any plans to add an iOS app for Hummingbot? Also, any plans to add more exchanges? I'm in the US and I'm a huge disadvantage since it won't let me use regular Binance anymore. Yeah, I totally sympathize. Being in the US myself, we're also very limited in terms of what we can access. And, I think we kind of we have like test accounts set up, like from our overseas offices in order to do something like this. So the first thing I would say is basic Hummingbot. The Hummingbot out of the package actually supports a lot of exchanges, including a lot of US ones, like Binance.us, Bittrex, and others. I think you might be referring to our liquidity mining platform, the Miner platform. The Miner platform right now, it supports Binance.com, which is not available to US people. We just added KuCoin recently. So KuCoin markets are available to people in the US. And we're adding BitMax, or as they've relabeled themselves, AscendX soon. AscendX, I think, is also available to people in the US. Overall, I would say for both Hummingbot as well as Hummingbot Miner, we're going to be constantly adding more exchanges. On the Hummingbot side, we're probably going to be adding more decentralized exchanges for the time being. But for Miner, we'll be at, I think we plan on being at 6 exchanges by the end of this year, which includes, which should include some of the larger ones, that we'll be adding at the end of the year. So now coming back to this, the bot. So Avalanche is now running. And so now if we take status, you can see that there are some strategy specific parameters that Avalanche shows, in particular, the risk factor, the order book depth factor. This is basically gamma and kappa. And then finally, what the observed volatility is, as well as the time to the end of the trading cycle. So note that Avada has a trading cycle, like a concept, and it's basically it's necessary in there and in kind of how the strategy works. So it's mainly because the model itself is kind of based on traditional stock markets, which they do have like an end of a trading session. So that's why we basically, in replicating the strategy as is, we basically kind of like made it as is. But in the future, we might create a new version and kind of like try to kind of make that time frame infinite. But there's some kind of like additional math we do there. So for now, I think we're still kind of modeling the traditional paper. Let's see. Okay, so I think you should have at least a feel for how the Avada strategy works. It's overall, I would say this should be just better than pure market making overall. So and over time, as more and more people use this strategy and as it gets more baked, we'll probably be adding more of the like order levels and some of the other kind of like convenience type features from pure market making into this one, and kind of making this one kind of more the basis of our market making strategies. And so finally, where are we going next with Hummingbot strategies? As I mentioned, one of the first things we're going to do is incorporate Avada into more of the market making strategies, which includes kind of like the liquidity mining, as well as probably the perpetual market making strategy. In addition, we're also going to add kind of like along that same vein, because there are many pen papers around market making, we plan on kind of incorporating more of them. So there's a number of paper. I think this Oliver Gwent is another author that's written a bunch of great papers on market making, and there's really a whole host of others. So ultimately, I think for whether it's us, and we also want to encourage kind of like quants and data scientists in the community who are interested in kind of like modeling these academic papers to raise your hand on our Discord and let us know. We're happy to work with you guys on maybe like on incorporating external contributors into this strategies as well. In addition, we've made some inroads into building connectors that support perpetual exchanges. So we support Binance Futures. We also support DYDX as well as perpetual protocol. So I think now that we have a few perpetual connectors, I think we can really kind of start to standardize those connectors because for users who are arbitraging funding rates or doing spot perpetual arbitrage between them, I think there are a number of differences between these different exchanges. And so I think right now we've done some, right now we've kind of added the connectors, but I think we have to kind of really look at the strategy a bit more to try to make them more standard. And finally, we've done some work in terms of adding Uniswap, Balancer, and other decentralized exchange connectors, but I think there's a lot more we can do there. And so currently we're in the process of kind of refactoring that gateway component to make it better for developers to use and even for our own internal developers to use. But heading to over the summer, I think we'll be adding a lot more decentralized exchange connectors there. And as I mentioned, finally, enabling easier strategy creation customization is definitely one area that we're going to do a lot more of this year. Last year, I think our whole team was really focused on building the miner platform and kind of like adding the first few connectors to decentralized exchanges. But now this year, I think now that the miner platform is really up and running now, we can really turn our attention back to Hummingbot and kind of like allow the user base, the community, to really involve them a lot more in the development and the upkeep of this project. So I hope that was helpful. This was just like I just wanted to just jump on this live stream and really just offer more information to the community, because I know that in the past few months it's been we really did heads down trying to accommodate how much growth the miner platform has had. So it's been I just haven't had the time to kind of do things like this, but hopefully I think that going into the summer, as we're enabling more kind of strategy creation, we'll also be announcing a hackathon, soon. So hopefully that will allow us to kind of be more informative and kind of just be better stewards of the community than we've been in the past. So I hope that was helpful. Is there any more questions? I'll kind of stay online for the next few minutes to take any questions and really just see if anyone has anything they want me to talk about. Oh, so actually, so Sean has one more comment. One thing I like to see is balance limits persist between runs, or visually display the change to balance from the initial limits. Yeah, that's a great comment. I do think that we introduced this balance limit feature in order to kind of allow users to kind of like have more control over what they're doing. But I do agree that having it not persist between runs is doesn't seem like a problem. I think in general there are probably better ways we can manage that, honestly. So I think if you have any suggestions, I would if you could like put them in a GitHub issue, or talk to one of our support team members, because overall I think we added that feature because I think certain users requested the ability to kind of have more control. But I don't think we've really kind of put a lot of thought into how to kind of make that feature more useful and usable for everyone. So if you have any suggestions, please let us know. And we're always looking for ways to kind of just make the lives of make the trading easier for our users. Well, all right. Well, I hope that was helpful for everyone. It's I know we're all pretty busy, so I'm gonna get on with my day and hope you have a good day as well. Happy trading, and hope to see you at the next version of Hummingbot Live. Bye.